I'm going to show you how to create incredibly energetic melodies, bouncy drum sequences, and how to get a perfect mix just like the productions for Travis Scott. I'll be showing you secret plugins you might recognize a synth like this, hit-proven chord progressions and melody strategies, and if you want, you could lower these two notes to get this effect here. Crazy drum hacks, and you can build a cool riser with the 808 like this. And how to mix all of it together to create the perfect beat for Travis Scott. I'm going to set the BPM to 135, which is roughly where a lot of Travis Scott's songs hit. And to capture his high energy vibe, you really need a high energy synth or pluck just like this. Now, if you pick the wrong scale, the energy is going to be off. So I'm going to click on this arrow here, go into scale highlighting, and select C minor, which is a perfect starting point for dark melodies like these. Now I'm going to create chords around these notes. To make your beat sound less robotic, it can be good to add melody layers or percussion that add a lot of texture to the track. Have a listen to Portland. There's a sound that comes in that almost sounds like somebody is knocking on a door in different rooms. It's like a bass with some kind of delay in the background. And most listeners aren't going to pick up on it exactly, but it adds so much energy and vibe to the beat. So I have the sound here. Just adds a little bit extra to the melody. If you want to change the vibe of your melody, you can have some more descending chords. If you listen to these notes here, that's more similar to like Fiend, for example. I added this quick counter melody here, just following the notes in the scale. And just to add a teeny bit more texture, I have this sound here. Depending on the type of Travis Scott song that you want to create, having a guitar is an awesome element that you can add. I have this Scorch preset here, which is just a normal kind of guitar. I'm going to grab the main chord progression here, paste it onto the guitar, and do Alt-A, which opens up an arpeggiator, and I change the pattern to flip, which is going to be like a descending sequence. I don't like how it starts here, so I'm just going to tweak this. And if you listen to Highest in the Room, which has a similar kind of guitar, you'll notice there'll be some kind of like fill where two guitar notes play in very quick succession. She fill my mind up with ideas. And to do the same thing, you can just go and add an extra note in here. And we're not going to bring all the layers in together in the actual song, but this is what the melody sounds like so far. So now you have a good melody to start with. It's time to drag in some drum samples. I just grabbed these from the Emotional Essence library. It'll be the top link in the description. So we have a fat 808 like this, a couple claps, a hi-hat, a punchy kick, and then some percussion, which can add some texture to the track, and then just a couple snares that we can swap between, and then a crash. I'm gonna add a little bit of a fill at the start. And the main thing is just make sure that you're following the notes of the scale and of the melody. I have these higher pitch notes here. I'm adding this clap. I have this almost tapping snare here, and I'm going to layer it on top of the clap and the snares, and also add these cool fills in here. And with this snare here, I just added this fill at the end here. And if you look at the pan, you'll see that it pans from side to side, which adds a lot to the track. I noticed that Travis Scott's hi-hats have a lot of texture to them. One way you can make them sound kind of realistic and authentic is by changing around the velocity of some of the notes, or going in and changing the panning, as well as going in and slightly modifying the timing. You'll notice how this adds so much more to the hi-hat than just having a two-step hi-hat sequence. So we have this low pitch note here, and then we have this fill coming in at the start, and I'm going to hold down Alt and drag and slightly move these off the grid. I'm gonna set the magnet to half step and click Ctrl U, which is just gonna slice up this hi-hat roll here. What you can do is you can lower the volume of the second note in the fill, which makes it sound a little bit less obvious. And change the magnet to 1/3. Kick sequence over the top. When you have a double kick like this, you want to find which one is what I call the dominant kick in this situation. So this one here, this second one, hits on a chord change. Which means I'm going to make the first one a bit quieter so the second one stands out. I have this open hi-hat here. We have one coming in almost at the start. And I actually went into the Emotional Essence library and dragged and dropped this live vocal. And the best thing about the Emotional Essence library is you drag it into any DAW, you pick whichever emotion and feeling you want to be inspired by and you want to convey in the track. I'm going to pick Sad Melancholic, and I'm going to go into the stems and MIDI, and there's so many royalty-free melodies in this pack. And you can hear this is the original melody. I just wanted to drag in the vocal. I then duplicated the vocal and turned the second one up 1200 cents, which is 1 octave. And all together, this is what it sounds like. The beat sounds really good, but there's so many layers, it really needs to be mixed. I'm going to double click on the top layer, which selects everything, go into the mixer track, click on the first one and do Ctrl-Shift-L, which is going to send everything to the mixer track. And then I'm going to go through and actually mix this. When I'm mixing, I like to go into my master track and just drag the stereo separation to 100% merged. This means your left and right ear are hearing the exact same thing, and it can make it so much easier to actually hear the levels of each layer when you're not being confused by things moving around. I like to mute every layer and go through one by one and set the volume and also add any EQ or effects. So these are the main chords. Just to neaten up the mix a little bit, I'm going to go and cut out some of this bass that you'll see down the bottom here, which is going to make the actual 808 when it comes in fit into the mix so much better. I'm also going to add some reverb to these main chords because this is going to carry the whole energy and vibe and backing of this track. I'm also going to add this delay here. You can hear that's what the feedback sounds like. One thing I'm also going to do is grab this melody here. I'm going to move it up an octave because it sounds very similar to the pluck and it's hitting very similar notes. I really want to have them in different octave ranges. We also have this guitar here. Definitely need some reverb. I'm then going to mute all of the melody layers except for the main chords and the guitar, and then I'm going to go through and layer the drums. If you're listening to all the melodies and then you add the drums, it's going to be so hard to actually mix them properly, and in the actual track you're never going to have all the melodies and drums come in at the same time. So why would you want to listen to that when you're mixing? So I brought these snares in here. Add some reverb to the hi-hat. And one thing I notice about a lot of Travis Scott's hi-hats is they tend to have quite a lot of texture to them. They don't sound processed at all. And one way I'm going to actually make that happen, I'm just going to quickly add in this second hi-hat here. I'm going to go and set the magnet to 1/4 step. I'm just going to add in some hi-hat rolls here, maybe change the pitch around, mess with the panning. And we just want it to blend in with the hi-hat and make the hi-hat sequence sound less robotic. And you can basically just go and add in random notes and they'll blend into the background and add a little bit more texture and depth to the hi-hat. And the final mix is at around -3 decibels, which is roughly where I want it to hit. And if we put this back to normal, the stereo separation, a lot of the depth of the track starts to come back. We can hear how good it really sounds. I'm going to add isotope ozone 9. You can use any kind of plugin to master this. You can use a soft clipper, you can use a maximizer, or you can use a compressor. I'm just going to use the built-in maximizer. Make the character down to very fast. And lower the threshold. And we can see that that's really boosted the final volume of the track. I'm going to split this mixer track. I'm going to drag all of these layers in, and also going to bring these live vocals up here. We can do a basic kind of trap arrangement here. We have an 8 or 16 bar intro, then you have an 8 to 16 bar verse, and then a hook, and then you basically repeat that over and over again. So I'm going to cut all the drums out at the start, as well as the vocals. I'm going to take out most of the layers when the drums come in and just leave the guitar. And then the guitar is going to come out, and the vocals and the rest of the melody layers are going to come in 8 bars later. So the arrangement of this track so far is, we have this 8-bar intro with just a few of the melody layers. We then take out most of the melody layers for this 16-bar verse. We have this guitar that comes in, and then that's substituted with these chords. And then we have this 8-bar hook here, where we bring in the live vocals and lots of the other melody layers, and then we go back to this 16-bar verse here. And as far as the drums go, I like to take out quite a lot of them at the start, mainly including open hi-hats, hi-hat fills for example, just to keep things really raw. You can make a snare sequence unique, for example, and then just go and cut out a lot of these fills. So then later on when that snare comes in, it is going to have those fills, but you can choose when they come in. I'm going to grab this transition here from the Emotional Essence library. I'm then going to go and grab this here, which is starting from the verse, and then it has the hook after. I'm going to duplicate it and just really make sure I don't mess up the timing. And then go and copy these last melody layers at the end. And then we have a track that's about 2.5 minutes long, which is a bit of a sweet spot for Travis Scott's tracks. I'm then going to duplicate those a few times. We have this outro here, and I'm going to duplicate this again because I'm going to add some cool kind of fill in the outro here. So this track is almost 3 minutes, which is reasonably similar to a lot of Travis's songs. A lot of producers I speak to that get lots of placements, they usually go and make the track about 2.5 minutes, because when you're exporting the stems, the file size is massive. So if you make the track an extra minute or two long, it's going to add hundreds of megabytes, when the engineer can basically go and grab the stems, duplicate it, and just like that, he made the song longer if he had to. I'm going to make this synth here unique. And I'm going to add these 2 chords at the end of this synth fill here. Do Alt-A, which is an arpeggiator. Then go and duplicate this sequence here. Move it down an octave. And we have this cool kind of art fill down here. And just like that, we have this cool kind of beat switch at the end here. I'm going to go and grab this pluck, drag it onto a new layer here, right click on it and click consolidate. And I'm just going to go from track start. And what I've done is I've turned this one pluck here into an actual wave file, and I want that to come in right before this kind of beat switch at the end. Set the magnet to 1/4. Go and grab the slice tool and just cut the start of this melody here. Just chop up this melody slightly. I'm going to delete this end part, and I'm going to duplicate this here. I'm going to make this last track here unique, and I'm going to lower the octave of it 1. So instead of having a reasonably boring outro, we have this really cool outro here. Just like that, we have an awesome beat switch at the end. There's so many Travis songs that do this. If you listen to songs that Mike Dean has produced for Travis Scott, they always have some cool kind of trippy outro like that. I hope you learned a lot from this video and use it to produce some amazing dark trap tracks. They get tons of streams, beat sales, and or placements. Click the link in the description to get the Emotional Essence library for 80% off, and click one of the suggested videos where you can learn how to produce beats for different artists or like different producers.